Everywhere you look right now, someone is telling you to invest, to save more, to buy this stock, avoid that mistake. And if you're a beginner, it all sounds urgent, overwhelming, and honestly, kind of stressful. So the good news is that investing can be simple when you leave out all the noise and the jargon. Not simple in a get-rich-quick way, but simple in a clear and passive way. So in this video, I'm going to cut through all the noise and explain investing in a way that actually makes sense without pretending that you need to become a finance expert. So if you're a complete beginner and you want a framework that you can actually stick to in 2026, this video is for you. So first things first, what even is investing? People hear investing, they picture day traders staring at 6 screens or crypto bros talking about some coin that is going to the moon. But none of that is what we're talking about here. Because when I talk about investing, I'm talking about investing in stocks through the stock market. And I want you to stop yourself before you think that sounds complicated, because it's actually pretty straightforward. So what does it mean to invest in stocks? Essentially, you're buying tiny pieces of companies. And when those companies do well over time, the value of your investment grows. That's basically the basics of investing. Now, why would you even want to do this? The reason is that investing gives you options. Maybe you don't want to work until you're 70 years old. Maybe you want to work less in the future. Maybe you want to take a sabbatical without having to panic about money. And maybe you just want to have the security of knowing that you're building something for yourself that doesn't require you to trade time for money forever. Investing gives you all of those options and more. And I'm going to give you some real numbers here because I think that seeing the real numbers is where it clicks for people. So if you keep your money in a savings account right now, you're earning anywhere between probably 1 to 5% of interest, depending where in the world you're located. And that's if you're lucky. The problem is that inflation is eating away at your money faster than what you're making in interest. So your money might be growing a tiny little bit when you try to save up, but it's not actually keeping up with the rising cost of living, which means that you're losing money by saving it. Now, the stock market historically has averaged around 8 to 10% in returns per year over the long term. That is more than triple what you would get in a savings account. Now, the part that makes investing really powerful is what we call compound interest. And this is honestly what separates people who build serious wealth from people who don't. Here's how it works in easy language. When you invest money and it grows, you earn returns. But then the next year, you're earning returns on the original money that you put in out of your own pocket, plus you're earning money on the money that you previously earned. So the money that you earned starts making money, and then that money starts making money. To show you with a real life example, let's say that you're investing $200 per month. That is less than most people spend on coffee and eating out in a month, right? Now, if you do that consistently and your investments grow at an average of 10% per year, what will happen is that after 10 years, you've put in $24,000 out of your own pocket, but your account is worth $41,000. That is $17,000 that you didn't have to work for, and that's basically what compound interest is. Let's say instead of 10 years, we're going to do that for 20 years. After 20 years, you've put in $48,000 out of your own pocket, right? Now your account is worth over $150,000. That is over $100K that you didn't have to do anything for. And the longer we go on, the bigger that number becomes. After 30 years, you've put in $72,000, but your account is worth almost $500,000 and you only contributed $72,000. That's compound interest, and that's why time is your biggest advantage in investing, because the money that you invest early on will work the hardest for you because it has the most time to grow. Now let's talk about the biggest mental block that I see, because a lot of people think I'll start investing once I make more money, or once I'm more stable, once I'm already wealthy. But all of that is backwards thinking. You don't invest because you're wealthy. You invest to build wealth. Investing early with small amounts is far more powerful than investing larger amounts later on, because time matters more than the intensity of your investing. So if you start early, even with very little, compounding has a long time to do its thing. But if you wait until you feel ready, you usually lose the most valuable asset that you have in investing, which is time. In the beginning, it all will feel a little bit underwhelming because you're going to look at your investing account and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I made like $50. That doesn't feel like much, but then a year goes by, 2 years, 5 years, and suddenly you are looking at thousands in growth. And that's when it clicks. That's when you've created options for yourself that you wouldn't have without investing. So whatever you can miss right now, if it's $20, $50, $100, $5,000 a month, that is enough to start. Don't wait until you feel like you have enough, because that day might never come if you keep waiting. But the most important thing is that you don't wait until you feel like you have enough. Okay, so now I know you might be wondering, cool, but what do I actually invest in? What companies do I buy? This is where most beginners get stuck, right? Because there are thousands of companies out there. How do you know which ones to pick? And what if you pick the wrong ones? What if the company that you invest your money in goes bankrupt? Now, here's the thing. You don't want to pick individual stocks. I don't do that, and I don't recommend you do either. And I know that might sound counterintuitive because we always hear people talk about buying Apple or Tesla or whatever, but individual stocks tend to be more risky because if that company falls, then a big chunk of your money takes a hit. Statistics actually show that even professional fund managers who have studied to do this as their job and have entire teams analyze financial reports struggle to pick the right companies. And they usually underperform compared to someone who's just investing in a little bit of everything. Now, that investing in a little bit of everything, that's where it gets interesting because you can do that super easily with index funds and ETFs. Now, index funds and ETFs are basically baskets that pull many different companies all together. So instead of buying one company, you're buying a little piece of hundreds or even thousands of companies all at once. All you have to do is buy a share of the basket that contains all of them. So for example, one of the most popular ETFs and index funds tracks the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is an index, which is a fancy word for list, with the 500 biggest companies in the United States. So when you're investing in the S&P 500, you have a tiny piece of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Coca-Cola, and all of the big names that you know that are based in the United States. They all are in the same basket. So why is this better than picking individual stocks? Well, first of all, it spreads your risk, and this is called diversification. Basically, bad performance of one company doesn't tank your entire investments because there's so many other companies that you own as well. If Apple has a bad quarter, maybe Microsoft is doing better. It kind of balances each other out. Secondly, the fees are very low. ETFs are designed to be cheap to own. So you're not paying someone to actively manage your money and try to beat the market. You're just trying to do whatever the overall market is doing, because the index funds and ETFs that you're investing in, they don't really have to do anything except for follow the index that they are tracking. And therefore it's passive and it doesn't cost a lot to offer that to you. And also they're super cheap to purchase to get your foot in. So you don't need to have a lot of money like you, for example, would need with something like real estate, because an ETF share can literally cost less than $10, which means that if you only have $10, you can buy one share. If you have $5,000, you can buy 500 shares. And that makes it easy to start at whatever financial level you're at. The best part of all of this is that it kind of eliminates the fear of doing it wrong, because you don't need to know everything in order to start. You don't need to spend hours researching a specific company. You're not trying to pick the right stock or time the market, because you're investing in the entire market. And let me tell you something that might sound a little bit boring, but is actually really important. ETFs are boring by design. If it feels kind of boring because you're not doing a lot yourself, that usually means that you're doing it right. Because investing shouldn't be exciting and dramatic. It should be simple, consistent, and working in the background while you're living your life. Now, there's a lot of index funds and ETFs out there. So if you're wondering which one do I start with, I would usually start with a global index ETF that tracks companies globally, something like VWCE or VWRL if you're in Europe, or VT if you're in the United States. And there are equivalents of these funds all over the world, because these literally invest in thousands of companies across the entire world inside one fund, which means that you will be super diversified and spread out across so many different things without having to do much for it. However, I do have to give an important disclaimer. Please keep on learning, because it is better to build a diversified portfolio that is really based on your personal goals. And in investing, there truly isn't a one size fits all, because different timelines and different financial goals require different kinds of investing. And so I can't really tell you, hey, this is what you should invest in. I can only give you a starting point for your research, but then it's important that you do that research yourself. What I mean by that is that it's better to have a mix of different types of investments. So not just one ETF, but a combination that spreads out your risk even more, and also in turn maximizes the returns that you're making. All right, so now you know what to invest in. The next question is, where do you actually do this? Like, what platform do you use to buy these ETFs? And this is important because not all platforms are created equally, and some of them will quietly eat away at your returns with high and hidden fees. So let me quickly walk you through what to look out for when you're picking your investment platform. First up, you want to make sure that the fees are low. So you want a platform that doesn't charge you a bunch of money just to buy and hold your investments for you. All of them will charge you a little bit, but it should really be a very small amount. So fees that you want to watch out are, for example, trading fees. These are fees that you're paying each time that you place an order. Account maintenance fees, which are monthly or yearly fees just for having an account. I usually don't like it when brokers do this because they're already getting trading fees, which should, by the way, be low, but I see no need for them to also get account maintenance fees. Then we have currency conversion fees. There are some platforms out there that will pretend to be cheap, but then automatically invest all of your money in a different currency, and then exchanging that money back to your home currency is actually where they are charging you a lot. So please always be careful and only go with reputable brokers. Don't pick a broker because you saw an ad or because an influencer recommended them, because usually they're being paid to do that. So please do your research to figure out which one is the best and has low fees. And the second thing that I need you to be careful with when picking your platform is banks, because a lot of traditional banks offer investing in their product suite, but their fees are usually way higher than the do-it-yourself platforms, and they usually get you lower returns anyways. I'm talking about 1 to 2% in management fees that most banks charge versus 0.1 to 0.3% at cheaper platforms. And that might not sound like a huge difference, but over the decades that you will be investing, that can cost you tens of thousands or even more in lost returns. So don't just go with a bank because it's convenient. Do a little bit of research first. And the last thing that is very convenient to have when picking your platform is automation. So look into whether the platform allows you to set up any automatic investments or at least a automatic bank transfer from your bank to the platform so that you don't have to remind yourself every time you want to invest to put aside some money. This is not a must to have, but it's very convenient because automation is what makes investing lazy. You only have to set it up once, and then every month a small amount will automatically get invested without you having to think about it. And that's really how to stay consistent without it taking over your life. If you want help with the full framework for investing in a simple and passive way, I do have a free masterclass where I walk you through everything step by step, and the link for that you can find in the description. In the next video, we're going to zoom in on the most common follow-up questions. Which ETFs do I actually buy?